Part 2. The Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Thousand-Year Odyssey. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our second lecture. When people talk about the fall of Rome, they usually mean 476 AD. But if you were a citizen living in the Mediterranean world in the year 500, 700, or 1000 AD, you would have found the phrase the fall of Rome nonsensical. To the east, the Roman Empire had not fallen at all. It remained the wealthiest, most populous, and most technologically advanced state in the Western world. Today, we call this state the Byzantine Empire, a term coined by 16th century German historian Hieronymus Wolff to distinguish it from its ancient pagan predecessor. However, its inhabitants never called themselves Byzantines. They called themselves Romans. Their state was the Basileia Romaean, the Roman Empire. They spoke Greek, prayed in Eastern Orthodox Christian churches, and dressed in silk rather than woolen togas. But they preserved the legal traditions, military discipline, and imperial administration of Augustus and Constantine for more than a millennium after the West collapsed. How did the East survive when the West shattered? How did it adapt across 10 centuries of relentless warfare? Let us examine the engine of Byzantine survival. Section 1. The Foundations of Survival. Why the East stood firm. To understand why Constantinople succeeded where Rome failed, we must analyze the structural advantages that shielded the East during the turbulent 5th and 6th centuries. 1. The geopolitical fortress of Constantinople. Founded by Constantine the Great in 330 AD on the site of the ancient Greek city of Byzantium, Constantinople was arguably the most strategically advantageous capital in human history. Situated on a triangular peninsula jutting into the Bosphorus Strait, the city was surrounded by water on 3 sides: the Golden Horn to the north, the Bosphorus to the east, and the Sea of Marmara to the south. Enemy navies attempting to approach faced treacherous currents and, later in history, the terrifying weapon known as Greek fire, a napalm-like liquid mixture that burned on water and was deployed through siphons mounted on Byzantine warships. On its single landward side, the city was defended by the Theodosian walls, commissioned by Emperor Theodosian II in the early 5th century. The Theodosian walls were not just a wall. They were a complex, triple-layered defensive matrix. The outer moat, a deep, 20-meter-wide stone-lined trench filled with water. The outer wall, a heavily fortified barrier manned by archers and stone-throwing artillery. The inner wall, a massive structure nearly 5 meters thick and 12 meters high, studded with 96 massive square and octagonal towers. For over 1,000 years, every major siege of Constantinople failed against these walls, from the Avars and Persians in 626 AD to the Arabs in 674 and 717 AD, and the Rus in 860 AD. 2. Economic vitality and cash reserves. Unlike the West, which suffered from ruralization and currency debasement, the East sat at the crossroads of international trade. It controlled the terminus of the Silk Road from China, the spice routes from India through the Red Sea, and the lucrative grain shipments from the Nile Delta. The empire collected taxes in gold, maintaining a stable currency called the solidus, later the numisma, which remained the standard international currency of the Mediterranean for over 700 years. This massive gold reserve meant that when barbarian armies threatened the eastern borders, the eastern emperors often chose to bribe them to turn west toward Italy and Gaul, sparing their own territories while accelerating the collapse of the western half. Section 2. The Age of Justinian and Theodora, 527 to 565 AD. The peak of the early Eastern Roman Empire occurred under Justinian I, a peasant-born visionary who claimed the throne in 527 AD, alongside his extraordinary wife, Empress Theodora. Justinian's reign was driven by a single ideological obsession: Renovatio Imperii, the reconquest and restoration of the Roman Empire. The Nika riots, 532 AD, the Crucible. Justinian's aggressive tax policies and autocratic rule caused immense anger. In January 532 AD, fans of the rival chariot racing factions of the Hippodrome, the Blues and the Greens, joined forces in a massive insurrection known as the Nika riots. Nika, meaning victory, The rioters burned down half the city, including the original Cathedral of Holy Wisdom. They declared a nephew of a previous emperor as their sovereign. Justinian and his court panicked, preparing to board ships and flee across the Sea of Marmara. It was the Empress Theodora who saved the dynasty. In a legendary speech recorded by the court historian Procopius, she declared, "If now you wish to save yourself, O Emperor, it is not hard. But as for myself, I hold to the ancient saying that the imperial purple makes a fine burial shroud." Emboldened by her courage, Justinian sent his top generals, Belisarius and Mundus, to lock the gates of the hippodrome. Their heavily armored soldiers trapped 30,000 rioters inside and slaughtered them. The rebellion was crushed, leaving Justinian with absolute, unchecked authority. The Great Reconquests. With domestic opposition eradicated, Justinian unleashed his military genius, General Belisarius. Vandalic War. 533 to 534 AD. Belisarius invaded North Africa with a light force and utterly dismantled the Vandal kingdom in less than a year, restoring Carthage to Roman control. Gothic War. 535 to 554 AD. The campaign to reclaim Italy from the Ostrogoths proved far more brutal. Rome changed hands 5 times. Though Italy was eventually recaptured, the 20-year war left the Italian peninsula devastated, its aqueducts destroyed, and its population decimated. The legal and architectural legacy. Even if Justinian had never fought a war, his domestic achievements would have immortalized him. The Corpus Juris Civilis, 529 to 534 AD. Justinian tasked the brilliant legal scholar Tribonian with gathering, editing, and organizing 1,000 years of chaotic Roman legal precedents. The resulting code of Justinian streamlined civil law, criminal law, and property rights. It forms the backbone of modern legal systems across continental Europe, Latin America, and parts of Asia today. The Hagia Sophia, 532 to 537 AD, built in just 5 years by the architects Isidore of Miletus and Anthemius of Tralles. The Cathedral of Holy Wisdom featured an unprecedented 31-meter dome that appeared to float effortlessly on 4 massive arches. When Justinian entered the completed cathedral, he reportedly exclaimed, "Solomon, I have surpassed thee." The catastrophe, the plague of Justinian, 541 to 542 AD. Just as the empire reached its territorial apex, tragedy struck. The first recorded pandemic of Yersinia pestis, bubonic plague, arrived via grain ships from Egypt. At its peak, the plague killed up to 5,000 to 10,000 people a day in Constantinople alone. It wiped out an estimated 20% to 40% of the empire's total population. The loss of tax revenue and military recruits broke the momentum of Justinian's reconquests, leaving the empire overextended, bankrupt, and demographically hollowed out. Section 3. The Great Transformation, from Latin Empire to Greek state. Following Justinian's death, the Eastern Empire faced existential threats from every direction. The Lombards conquered most of Italy. The Avars and Slavs flooded into the Balkans, and the Sasanian Persian Empire launched a devastating invasion that captured Egypt, Syria, and Palestine. Heraclius and the creation of the Themes, 610 to 641 AD. When Emperor Heraclius seized power in 610 AD, the empire was on the verge of total collapse. The Persian Shah Khosrow II was at the gates of Constantinople. Heraclius took unprecedented steps. Cultural shift. He officially dropped the ancient Latin imperial title imperator and adopted the Greek title basileus. Greek replaced Latin as the official administrative language of the state. The War of Survival. Heraclius melted down church gold to fund a holy counter-crusade, marching deep into the Persian heartland and crushing the Sasanian army at the Battle of Nineveh in 627 AD. However, both the Roman and Persian empires were completely exhausted by this decades-long struggle. The Arab conquests and the theme system. Just a few years after Heraclius's victory, out of the Arabian Peninsula came the armies of the newly unified Islamic Caliphate. Within 2 decades, 636 to 651 AD, The Arab forces conquered Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and Persia. Byzantium lost two-thirds of its territory and most of its tax revenue overnight. To survive, the empire completely reorganized its society into the theme system, the Mata. The remaining empire was divided into military districts called themes. Each theme was ruled by a military governor, strategos. Soldiers were granted hereditary plots of farmland in exchange for military service. Instead of relying on expensive mercenary armies, Byzantium now had a resilient, self-funding militia of farmer soldiers fighting to defend their own land. This structural pivot saved the state from total destruction. Section 4. The Golden Age of the Macedonian Dynasty, 867 to 1025 AD. After centuries of defensive warfare, religious division over iconoclasm, the controversial destruction of holy images, and territorial shrinkage, the Byzantine Empire experienced a spectacular political, military, and cultural renaissance under the Macedonian dynasty. Basil II, the Bulgar slayer, Bulgaroktonos. The zenith of medieval Byzantine power arrived with Emperor Basil II, reigned 976 to 1025 AD. A stern, unmarried soldier emperor who lived like a common legionnaire. Basil II spent his 49-year reign in the saddle. His primary focus was crushing the First Bulgarian Empire, which posed a constant threat to the Balkans. After decades of relentless campaigning, Basil inflicted a decisive defeat on the Bulgarian army at the Battle of Kleidion, 1014 AD. According to chroniclers, Basil captured 15,000 Bulgarian prisoners. He ordered them divided into groups of 100. 99 men were blinded in both eyes, while the 100th man was blinded in only one eye, so he could lead his comrades home. Upon seeing his blinded army return, Tsar Samuel of Bulgaria reportedly suffered a heart attack and died. By the end of Basil II's reign in 1025 AD, the empire's borders stretched from southern Italy to the mountains of Armenia and from the Danube River to the Levant. The imperial treasury in Constantinople was brimming with thousands of pounds of gold. In 988 AD, Basil secured a diplomatic alliance with Vladimir the Great of the Kievan Rus, leading to the Christianization of the East Slavs and extending Byzantine religious and cultural influence deep into Eastern Europe. Section 5. The Unraveling and the Fatal Blows, 1071 to 1453 AD. Following the death of Basil II, the empire suffered from a succession of weak rulers, court intrigues, and a rising merchant aristocracy that dismantled the theme system to hoard land, weakening the army once again. 1071 AD, a double catastrophe. The year 1071 marked a terrifying turning point. Loss of Italy. The last Byzantine stronghold in Italy, Bari, fell to the Normans under Robert Guiscard. Battle of Manzikert. In eastern Anatolia, the Byzantine Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes was defeated and captured by the Seljuk Turks under Sultan Alp Arslan. Manzikert opened the fertile interior of Anatolia, the empire's primary source of recruitment and food, to Turkish settlement. The empire was permanently crippled. The Fourth Crusade, 1204 AD, the betrayal. Desperate for military assistance against the Turks, Emperor Alexios I Komnenos appealed to the West for help, sparking the First Crusade in 1095 AD. While early crusades helped stabilize Byzantine borders, growing religious, economic, and cultural friction between Western Latin Catholics and Eastern Greek Orthodox Christians erupted in 1204 AD during the Fourth Crusade. Diverted to Constantinople by ambitious Venetian merchants and a claimant to the Byzantine throne, the Western Crusaders turned on their fellow Christians. They breached the sea walls and subjected Constantinople to 3 days of horrific pillaging, burning priceless ancient libraries, melting down classical bronze statues, and desecrating the Hagia Sophia. The sack of Constantinople, 1204 AD. Fourth Crusaders capture and loot Constantinople, carving the empire into short-lived Latin feudal states. Recapture of the city, 1261 AD. Michael VIII Palaiologos recaptures Constantinople, restoring the Byzantine Empire, but the state is now bankrupt and fractured. Ottoman foothold in Europe. 1354 AD. The Ottoman Turks capture Gallipoli, surrounding Constantinople on both sides, Europe and Asia. The fall of Constantinople. 1453 AD. Sultan Mehmed II breaches the city walls using heavy gunpowder artillery, ending the Eastern Roman Empire. Section 6. The fall of Constantinople, 1453 AD. By May 1453, the empire was nothing more than a city-state enclosed within the crumbling Theodosian walls, with a population reduced to roughly 50,000. It was surrounded by the expanding Ottoman Empire, ruled by the ambitious 21-year-old Sultan Mehmed II. The siege. Mehmed II assembled an army of over 80,000 men, backed by a massive fleet and state-of-the-art gunpowder artillery designed by a Hungarian engineer named Orban. The largest cannon, named the Basilic, could fire 600-pound stone balls against the ancient walls. Defending the city was the last emperor, Constantine XI Palaiologos, leading a desperate force of just 7,000 men, including 700 Genoese volunteers under the brilliant commander Giovanni Giustiniani. For 53 days, the defenders held out against bombardment, naval blockades, and subterranean mining attempts. Mehmed famously ordered his ships dragged overland on grease logs around the Golden Horn's defensive chain to attack the city's sea walls from second front. The final assault. May 29th, 1453. In the early morning hours of May 29th, 1453, Mehmed launched a massive, multi-tiered assault. The turning point came when Giustiniani was severely wounded, causing panic among the defenders. Ottoman janissaries managed to find a small, unlocked postern gate, the Kirka Porta, and raise the Ottoman flag on the walls. Realizing the city was lost, Emperor Constantine XI tore off his imperial insignia, drew his sword, and led a final, desperate cavalry charge into the oncoming janissaries. His body was never identified. By noon, Mehmed the Conqueror rode into the Hagia Sophia, ordered it converted into a mosque, and claimed the title of Kaiser I Rome, Caesar of Rome. The legacy of the East. The Eastern Roman Empire did not simply disappear. It handed the torch of civilization to the modern world. Preservation of classical knowledge. As Constantinople collapsed, Greek scholars fled westward to Italy, bringing with them original manuscripts of Plato, Aristotle, Homer, and Galen. This massive influx of ancient Greek learning ignited the Italian Renaissance. The shield of Europe. For 1,000 years, Byzantium absorbed the brunt of Eastern invasions, allowing Western Europe the time and peace to develop its own distinct medieval and early modern societies. Orthodox culture. Byzantine architecture, art, and religion laid the foundations for the Eastern Orthodox world today across Greece, the Balkans, Romania, Russia, and Ukraine. The Eastern Roman Empire proved that Rome was not tied to a single city, but was an enduring idea that could transform, survive, and shape humanity for 2 millennia.